We are going to chat about 25 books that are coming out in March that I think you might be interested in. I definitely am. Mostly horror and thriller with some sci-fi, romance, and mystery in there as well, as usual. Let's jump in because we have a lot to chat about. We will be going in publication order. I'm also reading this off of my computer screen. I have not read any of these books, so I don't have the plot memorized. Starting off on March 4th. First up is a horror dystopian, The Unworthy by Augustina Basterica. This is the author of Tender is the Flesh. From her cell in a mysterious covenant, a woman writes the story of her life in whatever she can find, discarded ink, dirt, and even her own blood. A lower member of the sacred sisterhood deemed an unworthy, she dreams of ascending to the ranks of the enlightened at the center of the covenant and of pleasing the foreboding superior sister. Outside, the world is plagued by catastrophe. Cities are submerged underwater, electricity and the internet are non-existent, and bands of survivors fight and forage in a cruel, barren landscape. Inside, the narrator is controlled, punished, but safe. But when a stranger makes her way past the covenant walls, joining the ranks of the unworthy, she forces the narrator to consider her long-buried past and what she may have been overlooking about the enlightened. As the two women grow closer, the narrator is increasingly haunted by questions about her own past, the environmental future, and her present life inside the covenant. How did she get to the sacred sisterhood? Why can't she remember her life before? And what really happens when a woman is chosen as one of the enlightened. It's a searing dystopian tale about climate crisis, ideological extremism, and the tidal pool of our most violent exploitive instincts. This one is pretty short at 192 pages. I very much enjoyed Tender is the Flesh, as a lot of people did. I hope it's going to be gross and disturbing. Very much looking forward to it. Next up, we have You Killed Me First by John Marrs. This is a mystery thriller. 3 women, 3 smoldering secrets. Who will make it out alive? Oh, I forgot that John Marrs was from the UK, and it says it's 5 November, and it really threw me off for a second. Okay. It's 5 November, and a woman awakens to a nightmare. Bound and gagged, she lies trapped in the heart of a towering bonfire. As the smoke thickens, panic sets in. She's moments away from being engulfed in flames. How did it come to this? Ooh. Rewind 11 months. Margot, a faded TV star, and her long-suffering friend Anna watch as glamorous Liv and her flawless family move into their street. The 3 women soon fabricate the perfect pretense of friendship, but each harbors her own deadly secret, and newcomer Liv senses something is terribly wrong beneath the polished exteriors. As cracks widen in the veneer of perfection and lies escalate out of control, tension ignites. Bonfire night is approaching and someone is set to burn, but who will it be? Bonfire night? That's capitalized. They plan to... Very excited. Also, Goodreads says March 4th and March 11th as the expected publication date, so maybe one of them is UK versus US. I'm not sure. One of those. Then we have Finlay Donovan Digs Her Own Grave. I'm not going to read the synopsis of this because this is the 5th in a series, but this is a cozy mystery thriller series. I read the first 2, I believe. I'm not caught up. I'm not sure if I plan on it, but I just wanted to add this in here. Then we have Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaughey. This is an author I've previously read from before. Oh, the synopsis is very, very long. But it's mystery, thriller, literary fiction. A family on a remote island, a mysterious woman washed ashore, a rising storm on the horizon. Dominic Salt and his 3 children are caretakers of Shearwater, a tiny island not far from Antarctica. Oh. Home to the world's largest seed bank. Seeds? Like seeds? Anyway, Shearwater was once full of researchers, but with sea levels rising, the salts are now its final inhabitants, packing up the seeds before they are transported to safer ground. Despite the wild beauty of life here, isolation has taken its toll on the salts. I'm not going to read the specifics of the family, but there's an 18-year-old and a 9-year-old, and there was a loss that drove the family to Shearwater in the first place. And then the worst storm the island has ever seen happens. A woman washes up on shore, and the family nurses the woman back to life. Their suspicion gives way to affection, and they finally begin to feel like a family again. The 18-year-old falls for this woman, but she isn't telling the family the whole truth about why she set out for Shearwater. And then there's a freshly dug grave that she finds. I don't know. This is a very, very long synopsis. I think this one's going to be more slower moving. Next up is a romance, Wild Side by Elsie Silver. This is the third in this series. I think there might be 4 total, but this is a contemporary romance. I'd always dreamed of my wedding day, but not like this. Not looking into the eyes of the man who betrayed me. The drama. But when my nephew's guardianship is contested, I decide I'll do whatever it takes to keep him in Rose Hill, even if that means marrying the enemy. Reese Dupree. A man who is secretive, brooding, and completely infuriating. A man whose work takes him away on the weekends and brings him back covered in mysterious bruises, ones he won't talk about. In fact, we barely talk at all. Which would be fine, except when he's not talking, he's staring, and the way he looks at me is borderline indecent. The tension between us has always been palpable, but living under the same roof is dangerous temptation. Oh my goodness. I swore I would never forgive him, but that was before I knew the man behind the mask. The one who's fierce and protective, the one who's gentle and patient, the one who shows up for us when we need him most. He's not at all who I thought he was. And that makes hating my husband so much harder and loving him just a little too easy. That was way more dramatic than I was expecting it to be. Then we have The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami. This is sci-fi. Sarah has just landed at LAX, returning home from a conference abroad, when agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull her aside and inform her that she will soon commit a crime. Using data from her dreams, the RAA's algorithm has determined that she is at imminent risk of harming the person she loves most, her husband. For his safety, she must be kept under observation for 21 days. What the heck? The agents transfer Sarah to a retention center where she is held with other dreamers, all of them women trying to prove their innocence from different crimes. With every deviation from the strict and ever-shifting rules of the facility, their stay is extended. Months pass and Sarah seems no closer to release. Then one day a new resident arrives, disrupting the order of the facility and leading Sarah on a collision course with the very companies that have deprived her of her freedom. Listen, I know that I put all these on this list, but I have been making this list since January, and I don't remember the synopsis of these things. I, at the moment, was like, yeah, cool, sounds good, and put it on the list. That sounds so cool. Moving on to March 11th. Claire Darling by Callie Kazumi. In the aftermath of a shocking breakup, a woman's desperate quest for answers ignites a psychological inferno that will consume her past, present, and future. This is a debut, and it is a thriller, mystery, psychological. She's been ghosted, but she won't be forgotten. Claire is excited to drop off a surprise workday lunch for her fiancé Noah. It's their anniversary after all, but when the receptionist tells her that no one with Noah's name works there, Claire thinks there must be a mistake. Noah isn't picking up her calls, her texts go unanswered. It turns out Noah has a different life, one with a beautiful girlfriend, a beautiful house. Claire was never really in the picture. Desperate to unpack all of Noah's lies, Claire plunges into a nightmarish journey of obsession that submerges her deeper into the murky waters of her own past. A past dominated by a manipulative mother who shattered her sense of self. Will Claire break free from the ghosts that haunt her, or will they become more costly than any of Noah's lies? I feel like I initially read a different synopsis for that. It sounds very fun. Then we have Kills Well with Others by Deanna Raybourn. This is the sequel to Killers of a Certain Age, so I'm not going to tell you the synopsis of this, but it is a more cozy mystery? Yeah, that's what that's called. It is a more cozy mystery thriller that follow 4 women assassins, but they are senior in status and in age. Then we have Vanishing Daughters by Cynthia Palaio. A haunted woman stalked by a serial killer confronts the horrors of fairy tales and the nightmares of real life. Is this a horror, mystery, thriller? It looks like it's psychological. It started the night journalist Briar Thorne's mother died in their rambling old mansion on Chicago's South Side. The nightmares of a woman in white pleading to come home, music switched on in locked rooms, and the panicked fear of being swallowed by the dark. Bree has almost convinced herself that these stirrings of dread are simply manifestors of grief and not the beyond world of ghostly impossibilities her mother believed in. And more tangible terrors still lurk outside the decaying Victorian Greystone. A serial killer has claimed the lives of 51 women in the Chicago area. When Bree starts researching the murders, she meets a stranger who tells her there's more to her sleepless nights than bad dreams. They hold the key to putting ghosts to rest and stopping a killer. But the killer has caught on and is closing in, and if Bree doesn't answer the call of the dead soon, she'll be walking among them. Moving on to March 18th, we're starting with Serial Killer Support Group by Saratoga Schaefer. When Sarah Griffin's younger sister is murdered by a serial killer, she knows better than to expect justice from the hands of the police department. With the investigation already dying its own slow death, Sarah follows the blood trail and finds her own way forward. Using insider information, don't ask, she infiltrates a support group for serial killers by pretending to be one herself in the hopes of finding the person who ended her sister's life. How does one find that? Anyway, proving herself to them comes at a cost, but it's one she's willing to pay for the name of revenge. Unfortunately, the dangerous men in the group aren't the only obstacle in her path for vengeance, and the further she descends into the deadly world of serial killers, the harder it becomes to hold on her own humanity. This is a debut book, mystery, thriller, horror. Sounds fun. Then we have Killer Potential by Hannah Deach. This is a debut. A scholarship kid with straight A's and big dreams, Evie always thought she was special, that she'd be someone. But after graduating from an elite university, she finds herself drowning in debt and working as an SAT tutor for the super rich of Los Angeles. Everything changes one Sunday when she arrives for her weekly lesson at the Victor's Beverly Hills estate, and in lieu of a bored teenager, finds the bloody remains of the parents strewn through their beautiful back garden and a woman crying for help within a closet. As Evie works to free her, the two are spotted, and within moments they go from bystanders to suspects to fugitives. Suddenly, at the heart of a manhunt and accompanied by a mysterious woman who refuses to speak, Evie knows the only way to clear her name is to find the real killer. But she's now getting press and she is finally somebody. This is a debut mystery thriller. The author is a former SAT tutor herself. Next up is The Haunting of Room 904 by Erica T. Worth. Olivia was never supposed to have the gift. The ability to commune with the dead was the specialty of her sister. But when she dies unexpectedly and under strange circumstances, somehow Olivia suddenly can't stop seeing and hearing from spirits. A few years later, she's the most in-demand paranormal investigator in Denver. She's good at her job, but the loss of her sister haunts her. That's when she hears from the Brown Palace, a landmark Denver hotel. The owner can't explain it, but every few years a girl is found dead in room 904, no matter what room she checked into the night before. As Olivia tries to understand these disturbing deaths, the past and the present collide as Olivia's investigation forces her to confront a mysterious and possibly dangerous cult, a vindictive journalist betrayed by her friends, and shocking revelations about her sister's secret life. A paranormal thriller, also with some horror and mystery in it. Then we have Night of the Witch Hunter by Patrick Barb. This is Killer VHS series number 6, I believe, but they're not connected. It's 1999 and Fallen Church, New Hampshire is ready for Y2K, but they never planned for Goodman Price. As the new millennium approaches, outcast teen Josie's school video project for history class inadvertently leads to the resurrection of Price, a demonic witch hunter from the 1600s. As he unleashes puritanical hell on earth in her small New England town, Josie must rely on her best friend, an ancestor accused of witchcraft, and the mystical powers inside herself to put an end to the Night of the Witch Hunter once and for all. This is horror. Then we have another horror. This one is historical horror with vampires, and that is Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. A diary written in 1912 by a Lutheran pastor is discovered within a wall. What it unveils is a slow massacre, a chain of events that go back to 217 Blackfeet dead in the snow. Told in transcribed interviews by a Blackfeet named Good Stab, who shares a narrative of his peculiar life over a series of confessional visits. This is an American Indian revenge story written by one of the new Masters of Horror, Stephen Graham Jones. Didn't need to read that sentence to you, but I love Stephen Graham Jones. Then we have a sci-fi horror from Philip Fracassi called The Third Rule of Time Travel. Rule 1, travel can only occur to a point within your lifetime. Rule 2, you can only travel for 90 seconds. Rule 3, you can only observe. The rules cannot be broken. Beth discovers time travel. It allows human consciousness to travel through time to any point in the traveler's life and relive moments of their life. And then her husband, the co-creator of this machine, dies in a tragic accident. She is left to raise their daughter and continue the work they started. She pushes herself to the limit to prove the value of her technology. Then the impossible happens. Simply viewing personal history should not alter the present, but with each new observation she makes, her own timeline begins to warp. As her reality shifts, Beth must solve the puzzles of her past, even if it means forsaking her future. Then we have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the second prequel to the Hunger Games series. This is following Haymitch and his story. I'm not going to read the full synopsis, but it is the second quarter quell. You've heard about the Hunger Games before. I love this series, so I definitely will be reading this. Moving on to March 25th, we have Witness 8 by Steve Kavanaugh. This is part of a series, it looks like. From my knowledge, it can be read alone. Something is wrong with Ruby Johnson. A former resident of the ultra-elite Manhattan upper class, Ruby now works as a maid in the type of houses she used to live in. Unassuming, she sees everyone's dirty secrets from the inside of their beautiful renovated brownstones. But when Ruby witnesses a murder, she has wicked plans in mind that don't involve telling the authorities the truth. Eddie Flynn, streetwise ex-con artist turned defense attorney, is the only lawyer in New York City willing to take on hopeless cases. But none is more hopeless than John Jackson's. The gun that killed his neighbor found with Jackson's DNA in his own home. Flynn and his unconventional team will need to use every trick they know to keep an innocent man from being locked up. Then we have a mystery thriller from Ashley Winstead, This Book Will Bury Me. It's the most famous crime in modern history, but only she knows the true story. After the unexpected death of her father, college student Jane Sharp longs for a distraction from her grief. She becomes obsessed with true crime, befriending armchair detectives who teach her how to hunt killers from afar. In this morbid internet underground, Jane finds friendship, purpose, and even glory. So when news of the shocking death of 3 college girls in Delphine, Idaho takes the world by storm, and sleuths everywhere race to solve the crimes, Jane and her friends are determined to beat them. But the case turns out to be stranger than anyone expected. Details don't add up, the police are cagey, and there seems to be more media hype and internet theorizing than actual evidence. When Jane and her sleuths take a step closer, they find that every answer only begs more questions. Something's not adding up, and they begin to suspect their killer may be smarter and more prolific than any they've faced before. Placing themselves in the center of the story starts to feel more and more like walking into a trap. Told 1 year after the astounding events that concluded the case and left the world reeling, when Jane has finally decided to break her silence about what really happened, she tells the true story of the Delphine massacres. And what she has to confess will shock even the most seasoned true crime fans. Then we have I Would Die For You by Sandy Jones. This is a mystery thriller. It does look like it has some historical aspects to it. Oh, yeah, okay. I might not personally be reading this one, but I want to share things. So it's set in the present time and 1986. Oh, that's not that historical. Okay, maybe it's fine. Now, Nicole lives in a quiet life on a small seaside Californian town with her husband and daughter. She is not expecting a writer to knock on the door asking for her personal insight into the downfall of the biggest British band of the 1980s, unveiling the threads of the life she put behind her years ago. The same day her daughter goes missing, and the school claims her aunt picked her up, but she doesn't have an aunt. Convinced of a link between the two, Nicole is forced to revisit long-abandoned memories from her past to protect everything she now holds dear. And then in 1986, 16-year-old Cassie is obsessed with the hottest band in London, Secret October. Harboring an intense crush on the lead man, Ben Edwards, she will do anything she can to capture his attention among the throngs of groupies at the band's scandalous backstage parties. But when Ben discovers her older sister Nicole singing at a local bar one night, he can't help but feel drawn to her, setting in motion a collision course that could tear their family apart. It sounds like a thriller version of Daisy Jones. Then we have Blood on Her Tongue by Joanna Van Veen. This is a Gothic horror. It looks to be vampires. It's set in the Netherlands, 1887. I like how I just complained about 1986 being historical. Also, the genres on Goodreads said it was historical, not me saying 1986 is historical, even though maybe it is. Anyway, Lucy's twin sister, Sarah, is unwell. She refuses to eat, mumbles nonsensically, and is increasingly obsessed with a centuries-old corpse recently discovered on her husband's grand estate. The doctor has diagnosed her with temporary insanity caused by a fever of the brain. To protect her twin from a terrible fate in a lunatic asylum, Lucy must unravel the mystery surrounding her sister's condition, but it's clear her twin is hiding something. Then again, Lucy is harboring secrets of her own too. Then the worst happens. Sarah's behavior takes a turn for the strange. She becomes angry and hungry. Lucy soon comes to suspect that something is trying to possess her beloved sister, or is it madness? As Sarah changes before her very eyes, Lucy must reckon with the dark, monstrous truth or risk losing her forever. Then we have a horror mystery thriller, and this is Nowhere by Allison Gunn. After losing her young son in an accident, Rachel Cannon throws herself into her career as police chief of a small Virginia town to avoid focusing on her grief. Meanwhile, her husband Finn, a washed-up writer whose alcoholism led to the devastating tragedy that changed everything, struggles to redeem himself before his family completely falls apart. Their 2 daughters are the only thing keeping Rachel and Finn together, but the girls have demons of their own. At the same time, a disturbing crime rocks their tight-knit religious community, sending Rachel chasing leads into a place that does not kindly take to outsiders. When an ominous force in the forest starts calling to the children, fear spawns hate among the townspeople, placing the Cannon family directly in line of fire. Left with no choice but to rely on each other, Rachel and Finn must come together to face threats inside and out. This draws from Appalachian folklore, so that'll be interesting. Then we have a sci-fi horror called Wrecked by Alex Gonzalez. Once, Sammy thought he knew how the world worked, the ugly things in his head, his uncle's pathetic death, his parents' mistrust, the twisted horrors he writes for the internet, didn't matter because he and his girl Ellery were on track for the good life in this messed up world. Then a car accident changed everything. Spiraling with grief and guilt, Sammy scrambles for distraction. He finds it in shock value videos of gore and violence that terrified him as a child. When someone messages him with a dark web link to footage of Ellery dying, he watches. First, the car crash that killed her, then hundreds of other deaths, even for people still alive. Accidents, diseases, suicides, murders. The host site is sadistic, vicious, impossible. It even seems to read his mind, manipulate his searches. But is it even real? Who is the person that sent him this link? He watches compulsively. The darkness in his mind blooms, driving him down a twisted path to find the roots of this website, even if he must become a nightmare himself. Then we have a sci-fi mystery thriller, Dissolution by Nicholas Binge. Maggie Webb has lived the last decade caring for her elderly husband Stanley, as memory loss gradually erases all the beautiful moments they created together. It's the loneliest she's ever felt in her life. When a mysterious stranger named Hassan appears at her door, he reveals a shocking truth. Stanley isn't losing his memories. Someone is actively removing them to hide a long-buried secret from coming to light. If Maggie does what she's told, she can reverse it. She can get her husband back. Led by Hassan and his technological marvels, Maggie breaks into her husband's mind, probing the depths of his past in an effort to save him. The deeper she dives, the more she unravels a mystery spanning continents and centuries, each layer more complex than the last. But Hassan cannot be trusted. Not just memories are disappearing, but pieces of reality itself. If Maggie cannot find out what Stanley did all those years ago and what Hassan is after now, she risks far more than her husband's life. The very course of human history hangs in the balance. Then we have another sci-fi, When the Moon Hits Your Eye by John Scalzi. This one is a little more on the quirky side. There's a moon made of cheese. And honestly, that's all I'm going to tell you. But if you like Andy Weir's stuff, you might also like John Scalzi. I feel like their writing, at least recently, is very similar. And finally, on March 29th, we have Bloodstains by Gaslight by Red Legault. This is vampire horror. It's 1997, senior year, and aspiring astronomy student Reese has her eyes set on the stars. The only thing holding her back is her jealous boyfriend, Michael, whose increasingly manipulative and abusive behavior cannot be tolerated any longer. However, moments before Reese gathers the courage to break up with him, Michael is in a tragic accident. There are no rational explanations that can make sense of the changes Reese sees in him, but it is clear Michael is becoming something inhuman, something impossible. Intoxicated with unbridled power, he sinks his teeth into her jugular and traps Reese in a life of inescapable horror. This takes an uncomfortable look at the intimate partner violence, exploring the monsters of humanity through the lens of a vampire tale. I hope you have learned about a new book in this video. Most of these are authors I have previously read from and enjoyed. I'm really excited about all of these. It seems like it's going to be a great month for books. If you have any books you're looking forward to coming out in March, feel free to leave them in the comments if I didn't go over them. Also, if you're really looking forward to something in April, leave that in the comments as well, and I might talk about it in the next video. If you've made it to the end and want to leave me an emoji to say you were here, you can leave me a pencil. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope to see you very soon. Bye.